All right, Lincoln High School, here we go. This is Premiere Practice 2. So in this assignment, we're going to create a photo montage using at least 10 images. We're going to put black video at the beginning and the end. We're going to add transitions between our slides. And on our slides, we're going to do this effect. It's called an image pan. It's also known as the Ken Burns effect because he's a documentary filmmaker that made this effect really popular. We're also going to add some music and we're going to add some titles. So let's get to it, all right? So first off, we're going to go ahead and open up Premiere. And once we're in Premiere, we're going to go ahead and create a new project. Now it's really important that you give your project a name, so we'll go ahead and call it Practice 2. And it's always important that you give your project or that you pay attention to the location. So I always like to go on location, click Browse. Again, anytime that you're working with media, it's really important that you know where your files are going and that you know what they are named. So in this case, I'm going to go Browse. I'm going to go ahead and put it in my Documents. And I already have a new folder created called Premiere Practice 2. And I'm going to go ahead and select that folder and put it in there. So now I know that the name of my project is Practice 2, and it's going into Premiere Practice 2 folder. So this project already exists, so I'm going to have to give it a different name. I'm going to call this one Demo. All right, hit OK. All right, so that goes ahead and that brings us into Premiere. Now, when you first start off, you're probably going to see the learning layout with some tutorials over here on the left. But we want to go ahead and there's different layouts along here on the top. So let's just go over the kind of the layout real quick. We want to work, so there's learning, assembly, editing. We're going to work in the editing layout. So along the top, let's select editing. And that brings us into what kind of is the basic layout for Premiere. Now there's kind of 4 quadrants to this layout. So top left quadrant is your source window. This is where you preview your clips. This is also where you make changes to your effects and some other things. And then on the top right hand side, we have our program window. This is where our final video, what it's going to look like. This is where it'll show up as we edit it. This is kind of a preview of what our final video is going to look like when we finish it. And then down here in the bottom left, this is called our project window. So in our project window is where we bring all our files in and out. It's also where we bring effects in and out and some other things. And then lastly, down here on the bottom right is our timeline. So our timeline is where we put our sequence. So it's basically where we edit together our video and decide what our video is going to look like. And between our project window and our timeline here is our tools. So there's a strip of tools here that we will refer to from time to time. All right, so to start off, we're going to go ahead and create a new sequence because we want a high definition sequence. That'll be widescreen and fit on a normal TV. So I'm going to go ahead and click on New Item. And I'm going to go New Sequence. All right, the kind of sequence that we want to use is called AVCHD. So you're going to look for that folder first. Open that up, and then the next folder we're looking for is 1080p because we want 1080p resolution. And then we're going to look for 1080p 30 because it's 30 frames per second. So that's what we want. Go ahead and hit OK. And now you notice down here in my timeline now I have a new sequence that I can start to build my film on. Now we want to start this film off with black at the beginning and the end. So I'm going to go ahead and click New Item, and I'm going to create a new color matte. And video settings should automatically be set since I did it after I created my sequence. It's going to match my color matte with my sequence. So we have a color matte here that's 1920 by 1080. And our color is black, so we'll go ahead and leave that on black. And we can give a name for it. I'm going to call it Black Leader because that's what it's called back in the film days. Not leaders, but leader. So I'm going to rename that. There we go, leader. All right, so we'll go ahead and stick some black leader over here. So that gives us 5 seconds of black footage here at the beginning. Again, by default, it's automatically set to 5 seconds. We can throw it up in our source window if we want. And again, we can adjust the time if we want it longer or shorter. So as you can see, I'm just dragging out the end of this here, and it's dragging the time longer or shorter. This is the length of time here. This is the duration. This first number is frames. So we're 1080p 30, so 30 frames in a second. So think of these kind of like milliseconds, but except for every 30 of these equals 1 second. So this is about 5 seconds here because it's 4 seconds and 29 frames. So again, the second number is seconds, and then the third number is minutes. So again, pay attention to these numbers here. Don't get confused. Some people think that this first number all the way on the right is seconds. And if you do that, it's going to be a really short video because it's actually frames. So 4 frames is way less than a second. not even half a second, right? And then don't think that like this number is seconds over here. Then you're going to go 4 minutes and you're going to have really long pictures. So probably don't want that. So the next thing we need to do is we need to bring in our photos. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my project window down here, and I'm going to go to Media Browser. All right, and when I go to Media Browser, when you first open it up, it's probably going to look like this, and we want to go to C Drive to find our files, and then we're going to go to Users. Then we're going to look for our username. There's me, and then I'm going to look for where I stuck my files when I downloaded them. So for you, that might be Downloads, probably. For me, I think I created one in Documents, and we have some. I have a Practice 2 folder here someplace. I'm going to go ahead and use the Office here. The Office. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the photos from the Office. Just select them. I'm going to hold down the Control key and click on all the photos I want. All right. Should be about 10 of them. And then once I have them all selected, again, I was holding down the Control key on my keyboard while I clicked on each one of those photos. Now I'm going to right click and say Import. That brings my files into my project bin. And now I can go ahead and start bringing these over. All right. So again, I'm just going to leave them all at 5 seconds to make this quick and easy. Honestly, for this demo, I probably don't even need to do them all, but I'll go ahead and throw them all on here real quick. Now remember, when we throw these on here, these pictures are all sorts of different sizes. I'll put my black leader here at the end. So if I wanted to rearrange them so they all fit the screen, just kind of to start as that as the default, I can right click on either one on any of them. So if I go on and right click and go set to frame size, automatically blow it up to frame size. Now I go ahead and want to do that to all of them, so I'm just going to go ahead and highlight them all and then right click, set to frame size, and they're all going to be, boom, set to the size of the frame there. All right. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to talk about how to create those image pans. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my first photo here. And to create an image pan, I click on the photo. I make sure the blue playhead is over the top of that photo, so I'm looking at it up here in my program. And I'm going to go up to Effect Controls. All right, when you first pull that up, you're going to see you have 3 options here. First one's called Motion, then Opacity, and then Time Remapping. The one we're really concerned with is under Motion, so we're going to go ahead and open up Motion by clicking on this little caret. All right, and then inside of Motion, we have a number of different options, but the 2, again, that we're mainly concerned with are the first 2 here called Position and Scale. These are the most 2 common. This is where the picture is located on the frame, and this is how big the picture is on the frame. So I'm going to go ahead, and if you notice now that I have this picture selected and my blue line's over the top of it, it pulls up a little timeline here next to my settings, so I can see where I'm at on this particular picture. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to kind of the beginning of the picture here in my timeline, and I'm going to turn on animation. So I do that by clicking on this little stopwatch here that toggles on the option to animate. When I do that, it puts in 2 keyframes. So these little diamond things here are called keyframes. They're little markers. These little markers tell the computer at this point in time, so where my blue line is, at this point in time, I want my picture to look like this. So in this case, it's kind of filling up the whole frame, right? And I want to animate it, so I want to go to a different point in my video. So I'm going to scroll forward, and I'm going to say, okay, now at this point in my video where my blue line's at, I want this picture to look differently. So if I go over to my program window and double click on my picture, I can go ahead and start manipulating the picture to change how I want it to look. So I just went ahead and dragged the edges out to zoom in, and I can go ahead and move it around over here. Again, I can also make these adjustments over here by just adjusting scale and also by adjusting the position numbers, right? All those things will go ahead and move the picture as well. But it's also pretty easy just to click on the picture and move it where you want it. Sometimes the scale, you might not be able to blow it up as big as you want, so then that's when you want to come over here and just kind of scroll on these numbers to make it bigger. All right, so when I did that, the computer automatically figured out, oh, okay, he's in a new part of the video, and he just made changes to the picture, and we turned on animations. So it goes ahead and adds the next set of keyframes for me and says, okay, well, at this point in the picture, or this point in the video, you must want your picture to look like this. And now if I scroll back, you can see that the computer figured out how to automatically make that transition for me. Now, yeah, it's pretty blurry when it's playing. Again, that's just because we're looking at a preview. It's not fully rendered yet. But just like that, we went ahead and animated that. Now I can go to the next picture. We can go ahead and animate this one too. So let's just go ahead, and we want to animate scale and position. But this time, I want to go ahead and zoom out. So when I get to the end of this clip, I want it to look like this. So I'm going to go ahead and go to the end, and then turn on my animations, because that's where I want those diamonds. That's what I want it to look like. And then when I go back here to the beginning and set my keyframes, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on Michael here. Maybe I'm going to zoom in on his hand, right? And then when we play, it's going to slowly zoom out. All right? And again, we'll just keep on doing this. We want to go ahead and get all our pictures animated, or at least 7 of them for this assignment. And once you got them all animated, then you can go back and we can add in some transitions. So transitions, again, are over in our project window. And we'll go ahead and look for effects. So this is effects down here in the project window now, not effect controls, and not the effect layouts, but rather effects down here in our project window. And we have video transitions. And we can go ahead and add a video transition. So if I wanted to add a cross dissolve between these two, I could. I just go ahead and open up the folder, find the transition I want, and I drag the transition over in between 2 clips. And that puts the transition there. All right? There's also some other ones. You could do an iris or a page peel. And again, with these transitions, you can always go in with effect controls. If I click on one of these transitions, it'll come up with the options for that transition. So I can change, like this one is a page peel here. I can change the corner that the page peel starts in, right? I can make some adjustments there. And there doesn't seem to be too many other options. But again, each effect has different options you can do. So if we did an iris, Iris has the option of I can choose where I want it to start at. So I can kind of move that box around. I can also put a border on it. So if I increase that, I put a black border on there. I can change the color of the border. So again, there's all sorts of options. Wipes have options too, like you can see here with the wipes. You got multiple wipes. So if you go down to wipes, you can adjust how many of those strips there are. So I can put in 2 strips. I could put in 99 strips, right? Well, maybe not. 32 strips is the most. Again, it gives a different effect. So again, you can customize your transitions, but you want to go ahead and get transitions on every clip after you've gone ahead and done your animation. So after you've gone ahead and either zoomed in or panned across your images here, you want to go ahead and put in transitions. Now, when you put in the transitions, you're going to notice, like here when I'm watching this transition, that my video kind of pauses there. So that didn't kind of look very smooth, right? It kind of like hesitates. So the reason for that is if I go back to my effect controls here on the first one, you're going to see my keyframes here kind of stop right here. So at this point, at this point in the video, I said, hey, you should be frozen right there like that and then just stay that way. Well, that's kind of what's making it hesitate. So we don't want to do that. We want to go ahead and take those keyframes and we'll just drag them all the way through the transition. So I'll go ahead and click on the next one. And these first 2 are the ones that are really causing the hesitation. I want to drag those all the way through the beginning of the transition. And now when I play it, it's just slowly zooming in and then slowly zooming out with no hesitation. All right, now sometimes you might want some hesitation, right? I might want to stop it right here and then just kind of freeze frame it for a second and then transition. Right, there might even be times where I want to do something like, oh, I zoom out, right? And then I want to go ahead and zoom in. So you can have multiple keyframes here. So if I click here, I've zoomed out, and now I'm here at a new spot in my playhead. And I can zoom in, and maybe I want to zoom in on someone else's face, right? Here we go, there's Pam's face. Right, so if we go back and watch it now, it's going to go ahead and zoom out and then zoom in. Right, and you know what, maybe I didn't even like that. Maybe I want to, I'll go here and I'm going to go ahead and delete these. So maybe I want to zoom in, zoom out, and maybe I want to hold that zoom out for a while. So that's why I can manually put in keyframes here. So if I click here, manually added some keyframes, and now I can go here to the end, and I can zoom back in, right, and move it back over to Pam's face, right? And so that kind of will zoom out and then pause, Again, because I set this keyframe to look here, and then I set these keyframes, added those second set of keyframes to say I still want the picture to look the same between here and here. And then it'll start to zoom in. Right? So lots of ways we can animate and add transitions. So once you've gone ahead and added transitions and animated all your clips, then you're going to want to go ahead and add some music. So Bend Sound is a website you can use to go ahead and get some free music. I should already have some in here in my downloads. So once you get your music downloaded, again, you'll go into C drive, user, your username, and then into your downloads folder, and then you'll look for your music. And I'm just going to randomly grab some stuff here, and then you right click on it and say import. That brings it into your project. You go ahead and click and drag it over to your audio track, audio 1. Again, I'll go ahead and zoom out, and I want to go ahead and trim down my audio track a bit here so that it matches the length of my video. And then zoom in, so now it matches the length of my video. And then I'm going to get to the end here, and I don't want the music to just cut off. That would just kind of sound weird. So what we're going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and open up this audio track here a bit. So I'll go between audio 1 and audio 2 over here on the side with the labels, and you'll notice my mouse turns into a little double arrow thing. And that'll let me expand out the audio track level. And now I can see this white line running down the middle. That is our volume level. And if I go over to my tools and switch to the pen tool, I can go ahead and make marks on this audio level. If you notice those marks, they're little diamonds, so they're like little keyframes, or also sometimes called anchor points when you're talking about audio tracks. And these say at this point, I want the volume here. So right down the middle is the volume. That's 100%. If I crank it up above that, that's basically doubling the volume, right? And if I go all the way down to the bottom, that's bringing the volume down to 0. Now if you notice that it took that whole line down to 0, so here it goes down to 0, and then it hits my anchor point, and then it goes up to full volume, and then only plays full volume for a second. That's not what I want. So I can go ahead and put it back in the middle here, so it's full volume, and then it hits this point, and then I want it to start fading down to 0. So I can go ahead and drag the second anchor point, or the second keyframe, down to 0. And now when I play the music, it's going to slowly fade out. All right? For some reason, my speakers aren't working at the moment, but not to worry. You can trust me. It slowly fades out here. All right. And so we went ahead and we talked about how to animate your photos, how to add transitions, how to add the music, how to pull your animations through your transitions so they look smooth. And then we talked about how to fade the music out so that it sounds good. The last thing we're going to do is add a title. So to add a title, we actually need to change our layout now, and we're going to go to graphics. Just because a lot of our options for titles only really show up in the graphics layout. So we'll click on graphics. That brings us into graphics, and then over here on the right-hand side, we have this new panel for graphics, and we're going to go ahead and click on edit, and we're going to click on new. So new layer right here, a little piece of paper thing, and we'll create a new text layer. As soon as we do that, we have all our options now for this new text layer we created. We can change the font down here to whatever we want it to be. We can do things like change the color. Right? Maybe we want red font, or maybe we really like that white font. Right? White on black is pretty easy to read. You can add shadows. Right? You can do a lot of different things, but of course, at some point you want to change the actual text. And so what you can do is go over here to our tools, and we're going to change to the type tool. Again, our tools kind of moved with this new layout. Now they're over here. So the type tool, or the text tool. With the text tool, I can go ahead and click in here, and I can go ahead and delete what it says. I think you can also probably delete it up here in a way to change it for you too. But you go ahead and delete it, and then write in whatever you want to write. Right? So I can go ahead and write in the end. I can switch back to my selection tool, and I can move it around. Again, I could resize it down here with my sizing options. I could also resize it here by adjusting it with the selection tool. All right. You can also add other layers when you're creating text. So over here, I can add a new layer, and I can add something like a rectangle. So maybe I want to stick a rectangle behind it. Right? Again, layers. So I need to move it down below the text so it shows up behind it. Right? So lots of options you can do there. Once you do that, again, it throws down a new little like video or box down here, just like our image boxes or our image videos in our timeline. So that is the text. So when this shows up, the text shows up, and when this ends, the text goes away. So I probably want to go ahead and line that up with my end of video. Maybe I want to shrink it down a little bit. So just like any other clip in here, I can adjust the length of it. So maybe I only want it to show up for part of the end here. And I can also add transitions to it because it is just like a video like anything else. If I go to effects and I look at my transitions, I can go ahead and add a dissolve here at the beginning and a dissolve here at the end. And that'll make it so that it fades in and then fades out. All right, and again, I could put another title over here. So if I want to put a title over here, I could go ahead and where I'm at, I could go ahead and hit, again, I want to kind of not be selected on anything. Again, because as I select on that title, if I hit new right now, it would add a title over here. I don't want that. I'm just going to click off of it so I don't have anything selected. Now I'm going to click new text, and it'll create a new title right here where my blue line is at. And I could go ahead and change this. Oops. Change this to say something like, oh, no, I do have to use the text tool. Change this to say something like, I don't know, the bosses, right? Because this is when Jim and Michael were both boss, right? So there's the bosses. All right. Right, and again, I can adjust that, match it up with the clip. Maybe I want it to start a little bit earlier, all that kind of stuff. All right. Anyhow, so once you've went ahead and added a title to somewhere in your video, so again, in your video, you need to have 10 images. Each image needs to have a transition, and then also 7 of them need to be animated. All right, so either zoom in, zoom out, or pan, something like that. And then when we're all done and your whole video is the way that you like it and you watched it all the way through and you thought, okay, this is great, I want to go ahead and turn it in. You want to make sure that you're either selected on the sequence window or on the program window. Always to be safe, I go ahead and just go File, Save first. And then we're going to go down to File and Export. And then Export Media. And then you're going to change your settings to Format, H.264, Preset. You're going to set that to High Quality 720. And then really important, again, you always want to make sure that you know what you're naming your project. In this case, you know what you're naming your video and where you're putting it. So right here where it says output name, you have to click and actually tell it, give it a name. So for this assignment, I want you to give it your last name. Or actually, no, I'm sorry. Practice 2. And then your last name. All right. And then pay attention to where it's going. So in this case, it's going to My Computer, Documents, Premiere Practice 2. Is that where I want it? Maybe I want it in my downloads. So I can click on my downloads and put it there. Or I can put it in my documents. Or I can put it in my pictures. Again, it doesn't matter to me where you put it. It only matters to me that you know where you put it. Because when you come and ask me where it is, I'm not going to know. You're the one that told it to go there. So make sure you know where you're telling it to go. All right, so this is, again, Practice 2 and my last name. And I'm going to go ahead and hit Save. And then go ahead and hit Export. And then it'll go ahead and build that video file. And once it's done encoding here, that video file is going to show up in that folder where I told it to go. Again, I told it to go into my pictures folder. And I named it Practice 2 and my last name. So when I go to Schoology to turn it in, that's where I'm going to look. I'm going to look at my pictures for Practice 2, my last name. And again, it's going to be a .mp4 file. Again, it needs to be a video file, not a project file. All right, good luck. And that's it.